Hey, welcome to Fabulous Friday Captive Audience. And it is the Friday before Election Day, and we're all in the frantic countdown of trying to get out the vote. So we're bringing on, having a couple of guests tonight. And first off, we have Will Lathrop, who is our Republican candidate for Attorney General. And Will, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm taking some time out of your busy campaign because I know that you are been very busy, burning the candle at both ends, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell us what can I wanted to give you the opportunity. What I'm doing right now is I'm posting a link to your website in the comments here. And there's let's talk a little bit about what the job. I know you've talked a lot about what
Yeah.
it is to be the attorney general, but now we have, for example, ballot boxes getting, incendiary devices and things like that. I mean, that would be under the purview of the attorney general, wouldn't it?
Well,
Would it?
it's a few things. One is it starts with the Secretary of State. The elections are under the purview of the Secretary
Yeah.
of State. But when you have anything that's considered organized crime, and that would be political crime, falls under the purview of the Attorney General. And it looks very much like some of these incidences are an organized political effort to thwart the ballot system.
Yeah, and I see a story that says suspect in the Pacific Northwest ballot box fires might strike again, and this is, I mean, we're seeing things that, truthfully, to my knowledge, we've never seen here in Oregon in
No,
our elections, right?
no, just downtown right now. They're starting to board up windows in downtown Portland. I have an office in Portland, and people are almost preparing for an inevitable riots and violent demonstrations. It's almost become the norm in Oregon during our elections that people are allowed to use violence and intimidation and coercion to get their point across. And it's not going to stop until somebody gets in trouble and goes to jail.
Yes, and that hasn't happened under the current attorney general or the DA of Portland. I
No.
mean, this is why they fired the district attorney of Portland. And
Mhm.
now we want to fire the attorney general of Oregon and bring you in. And in fact, I have an article that shows the pictures of, the buildings getting the storefronts and businesses and whatnot getting boarded up,
Yeah.
getting ready for a Trump win, according to the article, and violence. And yet, this is not how our system should be. But so I want to talk specifically more about your job as the Attorney General because I saw that with this type of crime, I would think, like, we're not hearing anything from the attorney general, at least that I haven't seen anything in the news, right? I mean, and so if Will Lathrop was our attorney general, would we be hearing something from you?
You hear mostly from our attorney general on national political issues, or she'll talk a lot about taking on big pharma or trying to deal with the opioid crisis. Meanwhile, we're the worst state in the whole country at dealing with fentanyl, which is what's sweeping the country and killing now thousands of Oregonians every year. When it
Mhm.
comes to anything that has to do with law enforcement, she is absent. She just completely stays in the shadows, which is very unfortunate because she's the chief law enforcement officer of the state. So
Yes.
when you have a chief law enforcement officer of the state that spends most of their time paying attention to things that are happening outside of our state and are not law enforcement related or political related, it creates this vacuum of lawlessness. I mean, it creates a vacuum that allows for lawlessness. And yeah, she has done less than nothing to deal with the constant political crime that happens in our state.
You are exactly right. And I will tell you, your debate was so good,
Oh, thank you.
and it's just so good. I encourage our viewers, if you've not seen it, to please just Google it up and find it. So, Will, what's your what would be your closing arguments to our audience and to the audience of Oregon, of why they ought to vote for you?
Most of the time, I think I spent most of the last year and a half doing two things: convincing people that the attorney general exists and matters, and that you should vote for me. And a lot of times the governor or other races sell themselves. People know what they're voting for, and they don't know what they're voting for as an attorney general. But it's not a secret to anyone that Oregon is really struggling from crime, homelessness, addiction, these just general lawlessness. And so you don't understand how important the attorney general is until you have a really, really bad one. My background is in law enforcement, in Oregon, nationally and internationally, and that's what it is. It's a law enforcement officer. And right now, the thing that's coming against us most commonly is really a foreign drug cartel. I mean, what is really driving crime in the state of Oregon is that precursors to fentanyl and methamphetamine are made in China. They're shipped to Mexico. They're processed there by two major cartels, the Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation cartel. And those cartels bring the drugs across the border, and then they distribute them in Oregon through either themselves or other smaller low-level gangs. And that's not going to go away until you have somebody who actually knows how to deal with international crime, which is what I've built an expertise in the last 8 years. And I just finally say that I've worked hard to raise money that you need to win, and almost all of my money has come from Oregon. I believe I've just set a record for a down ballot race and the amount of money that's been raised. So we've done that. I've had that kind of support. I've tried to speak to all the counties so that I can understand what's troubling each county. I've spent a lot of time in Oregon or in Portland, in downtown, going to all of the different neighborhood associations and taking all of the heat and all of the bullets that come along with that. Try to run a really good grassroots campaign. And I think that we're on the doorstep of being able to win. But right now, if your listeners don't know, the turnout in the state is really funky. The general voter turnout is very, very low. Though Republicans are outpacing Democrats percentage-wise, which is a good thing, it's an opportunity with Multnomah County and Clackamas County and Washington County having such low turnouts. If the rural counties, if the smaller counties really turn out this year in record numbers, it's going to tilt the balance in a significant way like we've never seen before. So if I had a passionate plea to you, is that you can say whatever you want about me, what you don't like. I don't have hair. I'm not the greatest statesman in the world, but nobody's going to tell me that I didn't work hard for this race, that I haven't worked as hard as I possibly could and given it everything I have. So what I'd ask all of you listening now is to give it, for these last several days, to give it all you have. Get anyone and everyone you can to vote. Really get the word out there, and get them to vote now. And so that we'll know who hasn't voted yet, so we can then track them down too. Because this is a really critical election for a lot of reasons nationally, and it's a really critical election when it comes to law enforcement in this state. And it's just a matter of, can we seize it? Will we work hard enough to seize it? That's what it really comes down to.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see that it's 5%. Republicans are up 5% in turning ballots in, but it takes each of us to getting contacting our family, friends, and neighbors that we can influence and asking them to vote, and helping our fellow citizen and our neighbors to get the ballot in. If there's older people or somebody who's infirmed or injured, and they just need a hand to get their ballot dropped off to the drop box, and answer some questions or whatnot, whatever it is, because that's absolutely what it takes. I know that you have just been working so very, very hard, and I'm very much a supporter of yours. I'm happy to do it, and I would encourage anything, $5-10, whatever you could, to please donate to Will and help him, because I'll tell you, it takes commercials, and commercials, we might not see them on television over here on the east side, but they need them on the west side. That's where the people are. But we need our east side voters voting. It's not to discount us.
Yeah.
But truthfully, I know as a Republican attorney general candidate, you are fighting the big bucks of the Democrat machine or the Soros machine.
Yes, I am.
And it's these commercials that are what's helping to reach the voters to see your face and listen to your message. And I just can't say that enough, that's for sure what has to happen.
Yeah.
And I pray that you get elected and help to turn our state around. this is what we need. We can't keep going and doing the same things and expect different results. And we have to help get people out to vote.
Yeah.
You can wish all you want, you can dream all you want, but unless you take the action, the people take the action. And we've got such great candidates this year, that it's an exciting time, quite frankly. And with what do you think of, not to put you all in Trump's camp or anything, but about the whole garbage scenario? And
I don't. It's funny because my campaign, I was on the way to a radio station in Columbia County today, and I was hearing all of that secondhand information. I'm so dialed in for 14, 15 hours a day that I don't even know what's happening in the national election. I heard a little bit about it.
So what events that do you have coming up? You have some on your website.
Yeah. Well, so for a lot of what I'm doing right now is phone banking. I'm just calling people who haven't gotten their vote, and other volunteers are as well. So we just call people. It's not always fun. Sometimes people hang up on you. You leave messages. You don't know if it's going to work. But I know of several people today that I called, and they said they were going to vote for me. So we're trying to log as many call hours as we can. If any of your listeners or participants want to do that, just go on my website, willlathrop.com, and hit the volunteer tab, and we'll set you up with a link, and makes it really easy. And then on Monday night, we're having a big rally with Lori Chavez DeRemer. She's in the fight of her life against who I think is just an absolutely horrific candidate, and Janelle Bynum.
Yes, she is.
And she needs to be beat. And Christine Drazen. So the three of us are doing a big rally in Canby. If anybody wants to drive all the way over there, you're more than welcome to. There's going to be snacks and just kind of a fun time. So, and then of course Tuesday night I'll have election party. If you're all invited, if you'd like to go.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, thank you so much. And that's good. If anybody's going to be in Canby, or if you can, I'm sure maybe you're doing a phone or texting campaign or something, and you have some time, and you can help out Will Lathrop's campaign to reach more voters. All of us are doing that. We're here in Umatilla County. You all know I'm the chair of our county Republican Party, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. We all have lists, and we are reaching the voters to encourage them to vote, reminding them to vote, and get that ballot off the kitchen table and into a drop box. That's what has to happen. And there are still people that are. I'm because of the people I've talked with that are saying, well, I'm going to wait until Tuesday. Okay. You see my name down here, and I copied that from Kevin because he filled in for me on Wednesday. I couldn't be here. And so he said, vote now, beat the Tuesday rush. Well, I'll tell you, that's a very good thing to do, is to vote now and beat the Tuesday rush. If you've got the ballot in your hand, it's on your kitchen table or on the counter, fill it out, get it turned in, and then you won't get any more phone calls. You won't get any more text messages, and frankly, you'll have it done. It's the peace of mind of, yes, I did it. Yeah. And I think it's just incumbent for each of us to do that. Will, thank you so very, very much for giving us a little bit of time here on Captive Audience. We so appreciate you, and the best to your family, the best to everybody, your campaign. And we got to win this thing.
Suni, before I go, I want to tell you, you have been supportive of me for more than 2 years, financially, in almost every way somebody can be supported in the campaign. You have made a huge difference. I know you do that for a lot of other candidates. I don't think you get paid. I think you just pay. You give time and you give money.
Yeah, I do. I don't get paid.
And it makes, and people, you probably don't get thanked enough, and probably people just yell at you a lot, but I want to let you know that I am really grateful for you and everything you've done for my campaign. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. And it's my pleasure. When I am so happy to support good, solid candidates that can win and have the integrity of people like such as yourself, truthfully. So thank you very much, Will. It's a pleasure, and we're gonna kick what and take names and win these things.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Okay, good night.
Bye.
And so we have with us tonight Dennis Linthicum is joining us. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, how are you, Suni?
Oh, I'm really good. Thank you so much for taking time out of the busy campaign season. We're happy to have you here. And I'm going to quickly post a link to your website. Thank you so much for joining us here on Captive Audience. And I know that you have been very, very busy with your campaign for Secretary of State. So tell
Yeah,
us about what have you got going on right now?
well, I'm similar to Will in that I'm banking on integrity and doing the job correctly. Will has more hair. I'm sorry, I have more hair than Will has, but um, it he always has this self-deprecating. I don't have hair, but I'm a good egg, and I think, well, wait a minute, and so, what's interesting is we are talking about doing a job and doing it correctly and following the rules and not twisting the rules. And the Secretary of State's office is busy, quote, implementing the legislative mandates. The legislature makes the law, and they often have a phrase in their legislation that says the Secretary of State shall write the rules to implement the policy as needed, or something vague like that.
Yeah.
This means the Secretary of State is a really powerful position for implementing what the legislature thought they were doing. Now, the legislature don't have any high hopes for the legislature because they've screwed up a bunch. And the Secretary of State encourages that mess along when it's the uniparty, when it's the big blue machine, when it's all Democrats. The governor's office, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Treasurer, the Speaker of the House, this Senate President, all of these positions are part of the majority party. And so everything looks like the majority party wants it to look. This is really the problem that Oregonians face. And this election is different than many elections we've had in a long time. This election, you have the treasurer, the attorney general, and the secretary of state, these three statewide executive offices that are up for grabs. We're all in close contest. 5%, which are, margin of error means Boquist could win, Lathrop could win, Linthicum could win. And what we really need is we need Republicans to vote, like you were closing in your last segment.
Yeah.
If that ballot is still on the table, you've got to put it in the box. You've got to make your vote count, and you've got to do it today, because the last thing we need is Republicans who don't vote. Your listening audience may not realize 468,000 registered Republicans, born into and living the Republican life, did not vote in the primary election. That's 500,000 Republicans who failed to vote. Now, why not? They didn't think it mattered. It wasn't important. Well, now it is important. Now they have to get off their backsides and say, I'm going to get involved. And I don't know. I've told this story before. I've written about it, but I've got a great, what makes this so important in terms of one man, one vote, that kind of thing. And I'll relate that, but you maybe have a show you want to continue with, but
We're fine. We're fine, Dennis. This is a good time.
People may not realize this. In Thomas Jefferson's diary, remember Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, had a first copy, and his first copy basically told the world that we had a institution within the United States known as slavery that was repugnant, and we ought to do away with it. It was a crime against humanity. And those are Jefferson's word. And then, that copy got replaced with other verbiage, and that isn't in there, but you can look it up. You can look for original version of the Declaration of Independence, and you can read it yourself. It's beautiful. And then let me clear my throat here. In I swallowed the wrong way.
Uh-oh.
You talk
Well,
for
I'll tell you.
second. You talk for a half second and I'll get a
Sure,
drink.
you bet. So I wanted to ask you about, there's a lot going on right now, and let Dennis get some water. And there's so much going on in Oregon right now with this election. We've had incendiary devices put in ballot boxes. These things actually come under the purview of the Secretary of State. And then we have as well a fake ballot box has been spotted in Clark County. Dennis, do you know about that?
I saw the incendiary devices. I did not see the fake ballot box.
Yeah, that was in, it's in Washington, Clark County, and has warned voters of ballot harvesting sites with fake drop boxes. But it says Portland, Oregon, Clark County officials, but it's Washington. I don't think it's
right. And there's all of these interesting things. What we hear from the my opponent is mainly Linthicum's an election denier, but I'm not denying anything. The election happened; it was there. What I'm really doing is questioning. I'm questioning how many drop boxes were lit on fire, and how many ballots. If you read the news blurb under that incendiary ballot box, it said there were 12 ballots in the ballot box. Really, there were 12 ballots, and they recovered them. They recovered all but 3 or some nonsense. And everybody has the right to question and have a grievance. They have the right to say, what was that word? They can investigate an incendiary device. Where'd it come from? Was it homemade? Was it a Molotov cocktail? Was it just whiskey or diesel put into a glass bottle, and et cetera? We ought to be able to know what's going on, and that the higher ups, the elites in the Democrat majority, are hiding this information from us. We hear that the Antifa during 2024 or 2020, this is 24, but in 2020 and whatnot, was mostly peaceful, and yet $2 billion of damage was done in downtown Portland. These are big numbers.
Yeah, and they say it's mostly peaceful, and the fire's right behind the reporter, at the courthouse there. They don't want people to believe their eyes and their ears of what they're seeing, for sure. So have you seen the story of the non-citizen, the Chinese student charged with voting illegally in Michigan? You may not have.
I did notice that. You probably are getting my newsletters. My newsletters have been highlighting the freedom that illegals actually have in the state of Oregon to vote illegally. There are no constraints whatsoever. They pretend that it takes an Oregon driver's license, and the Oregon driver's license requires you to be a U.S. citizen, but it doesn't. There's nothing on the driver's license that requires you to be a U.S. citizen. Then they also say we've got a 4-digit requirement, the last 4 digits of your social security number.
Mhm.
You and I actually may have the same last 4-digit social security number. You don't know, I don't know. We're trying to keep it private here. And when it comes time for them to know whether I voted with my last 4 digits and they happen to be the same as your last 4 digits, and 20,000 other people's last 4 digits all happen to match. Sure, the first 7 are different, or I guess there's 9 total. So, there's 5 others that might be different. And that makes a big difference in whether if it's a grand total. But when it's a unique identifier, 4 digits doesn't mean anything. And that's why when you get a bill from your credit card company, it's star 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 and the last 4 digits of your credit card. So if somebody steals your mail, they're powerless. They cannot figure out what your
Yeah.
credit card is because it means nothing way down there at the back side of your credit card. Same with your social security number. It means nothing. And the DMV and the Secretary of State have this charade where they're pretending this is beautiful. We're keeping track of everything. And then the worst case is that's case 1, driver's license. Case 2, 4 digits. Case 3 is you don't need anything, but you can show up to the DMV or the Secretary of State Registrar's office, your county clerk's registration office, and show them a electric bill or a utility bill, a gas bill or a water bill, and you register to vote. Nobody at the water company has ever asked me if I am a U.S. citizen. They have no idea if I'm a U.S. citizen.
Well, I want to say when you're filling out a voter registration form, you are attesting you're a citizen. You are attesting.
Well, yeah, this is
And
beautiful.
Dennis Richardson prosecuted at least 6 cases, if I remember correctly, of people voting that were not allowed to vote in the state. So is that something that you can, and I assumed, let me say this, I don't know because I'm not on that side of it, but I assumed when you put, if you didn't have an ID, Oregon ID or driver's license, and you put the last 4 of your social, that the elections office would verify that somehow to a database that the government is providing. That's what I assumed. That's not the case.
That's not the case. There is no validation or verification process whatsoever. And
Wow.
that's what the Secretary of State can change. The Secretary of State can implement rules for all sorts of things. When it comes to ballot measures, these IP measures, the signatures required, for example, IP 17, ranked choice voting is coming from out of state.
Yes.
18, the boondoggle for give everybody a check for $1,600, that's coming from out of state. What kind of individuals how many out of staters or in staters should we have signing an initiative petition and putting their name? And then how many will we validate? Will we validate 1 per 100 or 1 per 1,000 or 2 per 10,000? At some point, the Secretary of State implements those rules for validation and verification. And what we have now is a giant gaping hole in validation and verification. And this is a very, very dangerous situation to be in.
Well, it is. And we certainly need some reform here in the state of Oregon. I mean, because of what we see going on, there's lots of reform. And I'm so glad that what other types of things would you implement, or other ideas as our Secretary of State, Dennis?
Well, yeah. So the first thing, along with what we're talking about, would take some time to straighten out. The first thing that I could do on day one, I could snap my fingers and do this, is get rid of the Secretary of State's misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation software. I can't terminate the contract because there's a termination clause, but there's nothing that requires the Secretary of State to use or disseminate the information that comes from artificially AI, where they're using keywords to target you and I and target our speech and limit our speech and censor us based on how we're feeling. For example, this conversation you started with an individual who was a Chinese foreign national,
Right.
who,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. They could say that's not true and stop that conversation immediately. And they could take this webcast
Yeah.
offline. They could stop this restream audio broadcast right now, and they could
The
say we
Secretary
won't
of State can?
yeah, well, the Secretary of State submits this to Oregon State Police, FBI, and the Oregon Terrorism Review Board. So it would actually take a couple of days, maybe, but nevertheless, they can put an end to this anytime they see this kind of thing coming across. So if you think that all the machines going to sleep at 10:30 in 2020, when Trump was ahead, and then springing to life at 2:30 in the morning and Trump's magically behind, and all the cardboards up and all the election and county election
and
officials.
The graph went straight up.
Yeah. Yeah, you ought to put that graph into the box and let your readers see that. I mean, it's an amazing chart that all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
And so, and let's say that it no big deal. It was a technical problem, and maybe it was all valid. To say that the end result was valid is entirely different than seeking the answer to the problem that occurred.
Yes.
And the Secretary of State in the state of Oregon is not willing to do anything to find those answers. They're willing to just let the water flood through the valley until all of our homes are washed away. And then they pretend like, well, they'll pick up the pieces and they'll give you a FEMA check for $750. It doesn't work like that. And it's a tragedy happening in the state of Oregon right now.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to ask you, you know what? We need a strong person as yourself running for Secretary of State, winning this election. And I'm sure your campaign is doing the same or similar to what Will's is doing right now, of chasing those voters that haven't voted, correct?
Right. And we have text message volunteers, text messaging, an image and a link and get out the vote kind of thing with these keywords about integrity and Linthicum for Secretary of State, and don't leave your ballot on the kitchen table. That's a famous phrase. I don't know if people really leave them on the kitchen table. I know that's what happens at our place. It sits there, the mail comes in, we go through it, and the ballot sits there and sits there and sits there until you make up your mind to fill it out and lick the envelope that, hey, the state paid for it. We got 55 cents out of the state. And turn that ballot in, or better yet, take it to your elections office or to a drop box that you know is a real drop box.
Yes, absolutely. And, I will say, if for those that haven't made up their mind or don't know what to vote on the ballot measures and what, get a hold of your county Republican Party. Go look up their websites if they have them. get a hold of the county Republican Party where in the county that you live in, because they will have a recommendation. Trust me, they will all have a recommendation. And because I've had somebody, text me the other day and said, "Hey, I live over here in Salem. Who do I vote for on this?" And I actually looked up, the link to the county website and Marion County, and I shot them the link. And I said, "That's all right there. They have their whole recommendation." Because I think through the course of the years of being involved and talking to a lot of people, and also I worked the election board for 6 years, you see that some people, they vote for one thing and turn the ballot in. And in talking to people, they say, "Well, I didn't know who to vote for or what to vote for, so I didn't vote." And so part of it really is voter education. And at our house, that ballot sits on the kitchen table until we decide to vote. The same thing. The mail comes in and, half of it goes in the round file, and the important stuff is right there until it gets back to my office where I'm at right now. But the ballots stay on the kitchen table. That's the to-do list, right
Right.
there.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
at our house, we live off the grid, and I've been off the grid for 30 years. And so we don't just put it out in the trash. We start the morning fire with it. And it's a great way to stay warm in the winter. You get more election junk than you can stand. And I think this is a real problem that we face in Oregon. The Democrat majority loves to control your life. And most Republicans are trying to live their own lives. They've got their own jobs. They're trying to raise their kids. They're planning their day. They're starting their fires and doing their laundry, etc. And we're really more focused on family life and, and controlling what we can control. And we're not worried about bossing our neighbor around and telling him what to do. But the left actually does enjoy being right in the middle of your life. And since they enjoy that, they enjoy government. They're the party of big government. Big government never has enough. So it's always a tax and spend and consume and grow kind of environment. And that environment is deadly to our, what would I call it? I'd call it our American experiment, where your life is your life and my life is my life. And that's your form of happiness. And this is my form of happiness. And we get to enjoy our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of our own lifestyle and happiness without the government being involved. And it's a beautiful thing. If only we could get back to that real world that I think we used to live there, and it's slowly changing as the government grows and takes more and more of the roadway right out from under our feet.
Very true. Something else I was thinking as listening to you speak, the Secretary of State also does audits.
Yes.
There's audits, and so I have an article here from the Northwest Observer that the Judicial Watch is suing Oregon over the dirty voter rolls. Well, that is another audit. And full
That's exactly
disclosure,
right.
I'm a member of Judicial Watch, and actually I'm in that lawsuit, just full disclosure.
Yeah. Yeah, and Stephen Joncas is the attorney. Joncas has been my attorney in several different efforts with regard to election integrity, disenfranchising, 50% of the state, our request for a COVID grand jury investigation, all of those things. Stephen Joncas has been a stalwart when it comes to that. And that lawsuit is got legs. I think it's a great lawsuit, and this is where my opponent keeps drilling me for. So are you willing to say Joe Biden won the electoral race in 2020? And what's interesting about the way he twists it is he's not really wondering what I think about the election. What he's demanding is compulsory speech. He wants me to adopt his worldview and say, yes, I believe in global warming, or yes, I believe Joe Biden won the election, or yes, I believe, and name something. I believe electric cars are better than diesel cars.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get to the point, and you know this better than anybody. Yes, I believe electric combines are better than diesel combines, and I believe electric snow plows will be better than diesel snow plows, and on it goes. And it's like, I refuse to comply with your implicit lie, which is economically what would it be? It's an economic fallacy to think these things are true. You will never ever, I can guarantee this, you will never ever see an electric snowplow going
No.
over the pass.
Never, ever, ever, ever. Now, but the Secretary of State could absolutely, I believe, you tell me, can the Secretary of State get our voter rolls cleaned up here in the state of Oregon?
Yes, the Secretary of State can do that. Now, they have the legislature put in some pretty stiff rules, and you have to remember the legislature put in rules based upon politics, based upon political party majority. Your listeners may not realize in the Senate, a typical Senate committee is made of 5 members. And of those 5 members, 3 are always Democrat, and
because they have the
2
majority.
are always Republican, and it's always majority minority. So when you're wondering why Republicans can never get anything done, it's because the score in every committee, whether it's on the House side where there's more members, the Senate side, the math is easier.
Yeah.
The score is always 3-2. 3-2, no matter which game, which inning, no matter a doubleheader, no matter rain or shine, the score is always the same, 3-2. So none of these offices are bipartisan or unbiased. They're all biased because they've all been built by the majority party. In the state of Oregon, they're all biased with this left-hand twist to the genome. It's a left-hand twist because the leftists have created the laws and created the rules and the regulations, and the Secretary of State would be a great opportunity to actually voice concern about these laws that are irrational. They don't make sense. You cannot say, we want people to be citizens before they vote in a federal election, and then say, but we're not going to check.
No, but actually the Secretary of State must comply with federal law, regardless of what our state is. Okay, regardless of what our legislator said, they first of all must comply with federal law, and I think that would be a good place to start that argument.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The NVRA is what you're referring to.
Exactly.
And the NVRA is, we should be following that. Why aren't we following that?
And other states as well. I mean, that's like the gold standard. That's where it needs to be. So, Dennis, if anybody wants to help Dennis out, donate $5, $10, whatever you can.
Yes.
And also, get a hold of him from his website. I've already put the links in there. And I'm sure you would help take the volunteers and help you with your texting campaign.
Yeah. And people can email me directly if they'd like, dennis@electdennis.com. And I respond to all my emails. If you get one of my newsletters and do a reply, I see that reply and I respond. And I appreciate everybody staying involved and getting up early and staying in the fight.
Well, we appreciate you staying in the fight, and we wish Diane well on her race, of course.
That's
very,
right.
very much.
Yeah. you guys in Umatilla, you're the ones who have that giant billboard up on the freeway, right? That Linthicum Secretary of State.
We have, yeah, we have an electronic billboard in Pendleton that's on the
Right,
highway there. Yes, we do. We've got it
right,
with,
right.
yeah. So we're
So
happy
people,
to help you get elected and bring awareness to your position.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. That when I got that request from the billboard, I've used that billboard company before, and they said you were looking for a size 10 foot by 32 or something, which is a gigantic electronic
Yes.
image.
Yes, it
And
is. And we've got we have you, of course, and so we have Dennis Linthicum and Will Lathrop and um Trump up there, and getting out the vote and the vote deadline, register to vote. We're trying to for sure encourage people and educate people about the candidates. I like that electronic billboard a lot.
yeah, yeah, me too. It seems that between Boquist, Lathrop, and Linthicum, these three executive offices
Yeah.
are pulling above their weight. People are really really interested in finally getting to the bottom of the corruption that's been running through the state of Oregon. And they have high hopes for us that the three of us will be able to accomplish that. And what we really need is for your listeners and watchers and others to be sure to get out the vote, ask their friends, their family, their neighbors. Everybody on your block should be voting, and we would love it if you did that. And we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm sorry that Brian Boquist wasn't able to join us tonight. We tried to bring him in, but I wasn't able to, because we were hoping to have all three of you on tonight as a
Well,
roundup
yeah,
to Tuesday.
if you want me to kill 15 minutes with you, I can. I mean, I'm not sure where Brian fits into this schedule.
No, he unfortunately he's not here. So if you want to plug for him, that's good, because I want Brian Boquist elected as well. I mean, if we can get a trifecta here of Republicans, let's do it.
Yeah, well, I've worked with Brian for almost a full decade in the Senate, and Brian and I and Senator Art Robinson have been a trio of true conservatives who have a very clear method for recognizing and understanding fact and fiction. The legislature, unfortunately, has become this world where your feelings count, and or your self identity counts more than the truth underneath the whole game. And what's interesting is the Secretary of State's office, for example, and the Treasurer's office fall into the same category. Can't do the Treasury report or a legitimate audit if we don't have individuals who know how to use a 10 key or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. You've got to be able to add the numbers up, get the decimal places in the right, and orient yourself to the precision and rigor of the mathematics involved. You cannot pretend that your skin color or sexual preference or orientation will make you a better accountant or auditor than your math skills. And so we really do have to have a merit-based approach to governance in the state of Oregon, because without merit being the key feature of the position you hold or the position I hold or Brian Boquist holds, without merit being there in the mix, what did you get? You got diversity, great,
Yeah.
but what did that do for the state of Oregon? And so we've kind of got this kind of an upside down cake, if you will, where all the good stuff's been pushed to the bottom layer, and what you eat off the top is just, meaningless, because it doesn't add up to what you want. What you want is precision, you want rigor, you want integrity, you want honesty, you want faithfulness. All of those things have to be part of the mix, and it's got to be evenly distributed throughout your organization. You cannot simply rely on identity politics. My opponent and Brian's opponent have the other worldview. They think that the merit doesn't matter as much as the identity politics matters. And I think it's dangerous to go down that leg, because even way back during the revolution, where we had they started with liberty, fraternity, and equality. Equality was the tail end of that train, because people could understand liberty and they could understand fraternity and comradeship and being part of a team of a member. But equality is like, how are you and I equal? In which ways are we equal? And we're not equal in your skin color or my skin color, or whether we both wear glasses or not. We can only exercise equality when there's a standard. There's a math test. There's a proficiency standard. By the way, in Oregon, there are no proficiency standards required for graduating from high school.
I know.
None.
I was just having a conversation with somebody about that. The bar is gone. There is no bar any longer.
So if there's no standard, how are we measuring these kids, and how will they get into Yale and Harvard or Berkeley? They'll never get in because there's no standard. They'll have to, now this is the key, they'll have to tell a good story to get in. And now we're creating the fabrication realm that you make it up as you go along, and you tell a good story, and boom, you're in like Flint.
Well, I think there's a lot that we do need to get back to with merit-based, not just in politics, for sure, but in life. And, I read yesterday, Boeing is dismantling their DEI department. And it is in business because DEI is destroying business. It's destroying corporations. You want to hire the smartest person you can, and it doesn't have to be somebody from Harvard. It can, life experiences are a lot. You don't have to, I hate to name some of the billionaires that have not graduated from university, but we do have them in the world. And, but you need a smart person. Somebody who is smart and capable for the job at hand. Definitely DEI is wrecking the world. And I will tell you, it is not everywhere. There's so many people in America, I think, this is permeated everywhere, all over the world. I guarantee you it isn't at all. It is about a destruction of our nation. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, watch Monday Night Football, or the NBA, or the playoffs, whatever. Pick a sport and you'll see it's merit-based performance.
Yeah, exactly. It is merit-based. You're good. That's a good analogy. They've all tried out who's the best person's going to win the position, and then they have the second string if somebody gets injured. That's exactly it. Hey, thanks so much, Dennis, for joining me. I want to end on I always like ending on a positive note. And tonight's positive note is going to be that, and this is helping politics. It's sad, but it is helping politics. Bidenomics created only 12,000 jobs this last month. Before the election. And it's something that is maybe people haven't heard about. The International Space Station is bracing for an evacuation because in the Russian section, they have found 4 leaks. And that's a big deal. You can't hold your breath long enough to get out of there. They've got to do something. So we always kind of like the things that maybe people hadn't heard about on Captive Audience. We're definitely not the mainstream media, and we appreciate you coming with us. Everybody, get your ballot out, get it off that kitchen table, vote, donate if you can to any of the candidates. And I just very much appreciate Will Lathrop and Dennis Linthicum coming on for our, the Friday night before the election. And a lot of people vote this weekend. I know they do. And
Right.
so, Dennis, I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, no, that's great to know that you reach out into these other areas. You'll also remember that there's some individuals who went up in to visit the space station, and Boeing couldn't bring them back. Right to
Yes.
your DEI comment,
Yes.
and we're now going to rely on Elon Musk to bring them back, and that Elon Musk can do it isn't because he's a billionaire. He can do it because he cares about precision. We saw that rocket come down and the pincers caught it. I mean,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
it didn't go splashing into the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
It got caught, and it's reusable and can relaunch again. And these are beautiful things that come out of our American enterprise, where we care about these details and we pay attention, and we speak the truth and follow the science instead of letting politics tell us what the science is. We understand right from wrong. We understand that in a moral sense. We understand it in a mathematical sense. We understand it in scientific world, and we need to exercise our right to vote, because we can overpower the dormant left as they sit around and applaud for the great things they're doing as they destroy Oregon and the U.S. economy. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. It's fun to be here. We should do this more often, but I'm not going to promise more often because I'm running again. I mean, this is enough to, put you under. But we're ready to make a go of it. And I'm so thankful that you guys are here and have this podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Share this, share it, share it, share it. Spread the message. We're on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Put it out there. Thank you. Have a